I was standing by the bride and groom's table when Kevin leaned toward me. He had that smile I no longer recognized. That smile he had learned from Veronica. "Mom," he said in a casual voice, as if he were telling me the weather. "I want you to know something. The house you gave me, I already signed it over to Veronica. It's my wedding present to her." I felt the air leave my lungs. Veronica was by his side, her red nails shining under the lights. She looked directly at me and said in that sweet voice she used when she wanted to hurt me, "Relax, mother-in-law. This is just the beginning of everything." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't make a scene. I just took my cell phone out of my purse and dialed a number. "Arthur," I said in a low voice, turning my back to them. "It happened. He did it. You can proceed with everything." I hung up. I put the phone away. I took a deep breath. They didn't know I already had everything prepared. But let me tell you how I got here, because this story didn't begin at this wedding. It began much earlier, when I still believed a mother's love could conquer all. That night, I was wearing a gray dress I had bought years ago, and it didn't fit me the way it used to. My hands were shaking a little, but not from nerves. It was from the chill in the reception hall, or so I kept telling myself. The music was playing loudly, the guests' laughter filling every corner of the place. I had arrived at that wedding alone. Well, not exactly alone. Brenda, my neighbor, was with me. She had come with me because she knew I didn't want to face this without someone by my side. Brenda was one of those women who understand pain without needing words. Kevin was in the center of the hall, next to Veronica, my son, my only son. The boy I had held in my arms for entire nights when he had a fever. The same one who asked me for money for college, for the car, for the apartment. The same one who now looked at me as if I were a stranger. Or worse, as if I were a problem he needed to solve. Veronica was wearing a tight white dress with sparkles at the waist. She looked beautiful. I couldn't deny that. But there was something in her eyes that always unsettled me. Something cold. Something that made me feel small every time she looked at me. From the day I met her, I knew she didn't want me around. And Kevin, my Kevin, followed her as if she were the only person in the world who mattered. The ceremony had ended an hour ago. Now we were at the reception. Everyone was eating, dancing, drinking champagne. I was sitting at a table in the back, near the exit. It wasn't a coincidence. I had chosen that spot. I needed to be near the door, just in case. Just in case it all became unbearable and I had to leave without anyone seeing me fall apart. Brenda was sitting next to me. She squeezed my hand under the table and whispered, "You're okay, Margaret." I nodded, even though it wasn't true. I wasn't okay. I hadn't been for months. Then I saw Kevin get up from his table and walk toward me. Veronica was behind him, with that smile that seemed painted on her face. My stomach tightened. Something bad was about to happen. I could feel it in the air, in the way my son avoided looking me in the eyes. "Mom," he said when he reached my table, "come on, I want to talk to you for a moment." I stood up. My legs could barely hold me. We walked to a corner of the hall, away from the music, away from the guests. Veronica followed us closely, like a shadow. And that's when Kevin told me, when he announced that the house was no longer mine, that it wasn't even his anymore, that it was now Veronica's. "It was the right thing to do," he added, as if that justified everything. "Veronica is my wife now. What's mine is hers." I looked him in the eyes. I searched for something, a trace of the boy he used to be, a little guilt, a little doubt. I found nothing. Veronica stepped closer and put her hand on Kevin's arm. "Don't be dramatic, mother-in-law," she told me with that voice that sounded like honey but tasted like poison. "It's just a house. You still have your apartment, right? You'll be fine." My apartment, the place I lived now, a 400-square-foot space I had rented after selling everything to give that house to Kevin. She knew it. She knew I had nothing else. And she said it just like that, as if it didn't matter. "Relax, mother-in-law," Veronica repeated. And her smile grew wider. "This is just the beginning of everything." I didn't answer. I had no words. I didn't have the strength to fight right then. I just took out my cell phone and dialed. Arthur answered on the second ring. "Margaret." "It happened," I told him. "He did it. You can proceed with everything." There was a silence on the other end. Then I heard his voice. Calm, steady, understood. Give me 20 minutes. Everything is ready. I hung up. I put the phone back in my purse. I looked at Kevin and Veronica one last time. They were already turning their backs on me, walking back to their table, laughing at something I didn't hear. I stood there, in that corner of the hall, feeling the weight of the last few months finally begin to lift from my shoulders. Why didn't they know? Neither of them knew what was about to happen. I went back to my table. Brenda looked at me with concern. What happened, Margaret? What did they say? I didn't answer right away. I just took a sip of water and looked toward the dance floor, where Kevin and Veronica were now dancing together, surrounded by guests who were clapping and recording them with their phones. It doesn't matter anymore. I finally said to Brenda, soon, everything is going to change. She frowned, but didn't ask any more questions. I didn't say anything else. I just waited, because I had learned something in these months of silence. That women like me, the ones who have been stepped on, ignored, discarded, we don't need to scream to be heard. We just need the right moment. And that moment was about to arrive. But to understand what was about to happen that night, I need to take you back in time. I need to tell you how I ended up sitting at that wedding, waiting for the moment when everything would explode. I need you to know the woman I was before I became this one. It all started 3 years ago. Kevin was 32 years old and had just gotten a job at a tech company. He was making good money, or so he told me. But it was never enough for him. He always needed more. There was always something to buy, something to pay for, something that made him come to my door with that worried look I couldn't ignore. Mom, I need your help, he'd say. And I always said yes. Always. Because that's what mothers do, right? We give everything we have and then some, even if it means having nothing left. I had worked for 40 years as a secretary in a state job. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it had given me stability. It had given me a roof over my head, food on the table, and the ability to raise Kevin alone after his father left us when he was 5 years old. I retired at 63 with a modest pension. $600 a month. It wasn't much, but I had learned to live on little. I had an apartment downtown. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a small kitchen. I had bought it 30 years ago with a loan I finished paying off right before I retired. It was mine, completely mine. And that apartment represented everything I had achieved in my life. But Kevin needed a house. Mom, he told me one day, sitting in my living room, with that look he always used when he wanted something. I'm tired of paying rent. Every month I'm just throwing money in the trash. I need something of my own, something that's mine. I understood. He was 32. It was normal for him to want to settle down. So what are you thinking of doing? I asked him. I'm looking at houses, he said. But for the down payment, I need at least $20,000. I don't have that. The banks won't give me a loan without a strong down payment. $20,000. I didn't have that kind of cash. But I had my apartment. What if you sell your apartment? Kevin suggested, as if the idea had just occurred to him, though I knew he'd been thinking about it. You could sell it, give me the money for the house, and then you can come live with me. It would be perfect. Mom, we'd be together. I was silent. Sell my apartment. The place I had lived for 30 years. The place where Kevin had grown up. The place where I kept every memory of my life. I don't know, son, I told him. That's a really big decision. Think about it, Mom, he insisted. You won't be alone. You'll be with me. And when I get married, you'll have a bigger family. Grandchildren, maybe. You won't need a big apartment just for yourself. He convinced me. Or maybe I let myself be convinced because I wanted to believe he really needed me close. I sold my apartment 6 months later. I sold it for $85,000. It wasn't much, considering everything I'd put into it over the years, but it was enough. I gave Kevin $50,000. With this, you can buy a decent house, I told him, and save the rest for furniture, for whatever you need. He hugged me. He told me I was the best mom in the world. He promised me I would always have a place in his house. We're going to be together, Mom, he said. I promise. I was left with $35,000. With that money, I rented a small apartment on the outskirts of the city. 400 square feet, 1 bedroom, one bathroom, a kitchen that barely fit a stove. The rent was $400 a month. With my $600 pension, I had $200 left for food, medicine, and transportation. It was tight, very tight. But I thought it would only be temporary. I thought Kevin would soon call me to tell me to move in with him. But it didn't happen. Kevin bought the house. A nice 2-story house in a quiet neighborhood. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a small yard. He sent me pictures via text. "What do you think, Mom? It turned out beautiful. When am I moving in with you?" I asked. "Soon, Mom. Just let me get settled first. I have to fix a few things." 2 months passed, then 3, then 6. I was still waiting. Then he met Veronica. He brought her to my apartment one Sunday afternoon. "Mom, I want you to meet someone," he said with a huge smile. Veronica was beautiful. That was the first thing I noticed. She had long, black hair, big eyes, perfect skin. She wore expensive clothes, or at least they looked expensive. And she looked at me as if she were evaluating me. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Salas," she said, but she didn't hug me. She just extended her hand. I made them coffee. I served cookies. I tried to be nice. But Veronica barely spoke to me. She answered in monosyllables. She looked at her phone every 2 minutes, and as she was leaving, I heard her say to Kevin by the door, "Your mom lives here? It's so small." From that day on, everything changed. Kevin started visiting me less. It used to be every week, then every 2 weeks, then once a month. When I called him, he was always busy. "Mom, I'm with Veronica. I'll call you later. Mom, I have work. We'll talk tomorrow. Mom, I can't come this weekend. I have plans." I tried not to be a burden. I tried not to bother him. But I missed him. I missed my son. A year went by. Kevin and Veronica got engaged. I found out from a picture on social media. He hadn't told me anything. He hadn't invited me to be there when he proposed. I just saw the picture. Kevin kneeling, Veronica with her hands over her mouth, a ring shining on her finger. I sent him a text. "Congratulations, son. I'm so happy for you." He replied 3 hours later. "Thanks, Mom. Nothing more." Then I started to notice other things. When I called him, Veronica was always with him. And I could always hear her voice in the background, saying things like, "Don't be long," or "You have to go," or "Tell her you're busy." When I invited him over for dinner, he always had an excuse. When I asked about the wedding, he'd say, "Veronica is handling everything. Don't worry." I wasn't worried. I was being erased. And the worst part was, he didn't even realize it. Or maybe he did, and he just didn't care anymore. One day, I worked up the courage and went to his house without calling first. I knocked on the door. Veronica opened it. She was wearing a silk robe, her hair up. "Mrs. Salas," she said, without smiling. "We weren't expecting you." "I wanted to see Kevin," I told her. "He's home." "He's working," she replied. "In his office. Upstairs." She let me in, but she didn't offer me anything. She didn't invite me to sit down. She just stood there, watching me. I went upstairs. I knocked on the office door. Kevin opened it, looking surprised. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I wanted to see you," I said. "We haven't talked in weeks." He sighed. "Mom, I'm working. You can't just show up like this." "I'm sorry," I said. I just wanted to know how you are." "I'm fine," he said, but he didn't let me into the office. He stood in the doorway, blocking my path. Then I heard Veronica's voice from downstairs. "Kevin, honey, should I make some lunch?" "Yes, please," he answered. He didn't ask me if I wanted to stay for lunch. I left that house with a broken heart. And it was in that moment that I began to realize something was very wrong, that I wasn't welcome in my son's life, that Veronica had pushed me out of his life without him even noticing. Or worse, that he had let her. But I still didn't know how bad things really were. I still didn't know what they were planning to do to me. I would find that out later. And when I did, everything would change. The truth came to me in the most unexpected way. A Tuesday afternoon, 3 months before the wedding. I had gone to the grocery store and was returning to my apartment with 2 heavy bags in my hands. My knees ached. The arthritis was getting worse, but I didn't tell Kevin. I didn't want to be a burden. When I got to my door, I saw something on the floor. A cell phone. I recognized it immediately. It was Kevin's. It had a black case with his initials engraved on it. A gift I had given him for his last birthday. He must have dropped it the last time he came to visit. That was 2 weeks ago. I picked up the phone and went into my apartment. I left the bags in the kitchen and sat on the sofa. I looked at the screen. It was dark. The battery was probably dead. I looked for my charger. Luckily, our phones used the same kind. I plugged it in and waited. The screen lit up after a few minutes. It didn't have a passcode. Kevin never put a passcode on his phone. He said it was annoying to have to unlock it all the time. I wasn't planning to look through it. I was just going to call him and tell him I had it, that he could come pick it up whenever he wanted. But then the messages started coming in, one after another. Notifications that made the phone vibrate against the table. They were all from Veronica. "Where are you?" "I'm almost done here. See you at home. Don't forget what we talked about. We have to speed everything up." That last message made me curious. Speed what up? My finger moved almost without thinking. I opened the messaging app. I went into the conversation between Kevin and Veronica. What I saw froze my blood. I started reading from the top, from the most recent messages. At first, there was nothing strange, just normal couple things. "I love you. What do you want for dinner? Running late." But then I scrolled down and down. And I found something from 2 months ago. It was from Veronica. "Have you talked to your mom about the house yet?" Kevin had replied. "No, not yet. I don't know how to tell her." Veronica wrote back, "Well, you have to do it soon. We need that house in my name before the wedding. I'm not marrying you if everything is in your name. We already talked about this." Kevin, I know. It's just, my mom helped me with the money to buy it. She's going to feel bad." Veronica, "So? She gave it to you. It was her decision. You don't owe her anything. Besides, when we're married, what's yours is mine anyway. I'm just being practical." Kevin, "You're right. I'll talk to her." Veronica, "Good. And another thing. After the wedding, we need to talk about where your mom is going to live." Kevin, "What do you mean?" Veronica, "I mean, I don't want her living with us. I know you promised her that, but I didn't sign up to have my mother-in-law in my house." My heart stopped. I kept reading. Kevin, "She's not going to live with us. She already has her own place." Veronica, "But you told her that when you moved into the house, she could come with you. You told me that." Kevin, "Yeah, but that was before I met you. Things changed." Veronica, "Exactly. And it needs to stay that way. Your mom is fine where she is. She's an older person. She needs her space. We need ours." Kevin, "I agree." My hands were trembling, holding the phone. I kept scrolling. There was more. A message from a month ago. Veronica, "Have you thought about your mom's pension?" Kevin, "What about her pension?" Veronica, "That she's not going to live forever, Kevin. And when something happens, you're her only son. Everything she has will be yours. You should start getting organized now." Kevin, "Veronica, my mom is in good health." Veronica, "For now. But she's 67 years old. At that age, anything can happen. I'm just saying you should be prepared. Does she have a will?" Kevin, "I don't know. We've never talked about that." Veronica, "Well, you should. And you should also see if you can get access to her accounts. Just in case. You know, in case of an emergency." Kevin, "That sounds weird." Veronica, "It's not weird. It's being responsible. I did it with my dad when he turned 70. It's normal." Kevin, "Okay, I'll think about it." I felt tears welling up in my eyes. But there was still more. A message from 3 weeks ago. Veronica, "Your mom called me today." Kevin, "What for?" Veronica, "To ask if I needed help with the wedding planning. I told her no." Kevin, "And what did she say?" Veronica, "She got intense. Told me you were her only son and she wanted to be involved. Honestly, she's getting on my nerves. Why don't you tell her to relax?" Kevin, "I've told her several times. But you know how she is. She's always been very attached. Veronica. Well, she needs to understand you're not a kid anymore. You have your own life, and soon you'll have your own family. She's already served her purpose. Kevin. You're right. Those 3 words shattered me. You're right. My son agreed with everything she was saying. I kept reading. There was one more message. From a week ago. Veronica. I already spoke to the lawyer. He says the best thing is for the house to be in my name. That way, if anything happens between us, I'm protected. But don't worry, that's not going to happen. It's just for security. Kevin. Okay. When do we do the paperwork? Veronica. We can go tomorrow. I have everything ready. You just need to sign. Kevin. Perfect. And then the message that confirmed everything. Veronica. Are you going to tell your mom? Kevin. No. What for? She'll just get dramatic. It's better to just do it. I'll explain later if she asks. Veronica. Good. Anyway, that house is ours. She already did her part. Now it's time for her to live her life and let us live ours. I dropped the phone onto the sofa. I just sat there staring at the wall, unable to process what I had just read. My son, my life. And worse, he was doing it with full awareness. It wasn't just Veronica. It was him, too. He agreed. He had made the decision to leave me out. I cried for hours. I cried until I had no tears left. I cried for the mother I had been, for the mother I still was, for the son I had lost without even realizing it. But at some point, between the tears and the pain, something inside me changed. It wasn't just sadness I felt anymore. It was rage. Rage for having given everything and receiving this in return. Rage for having believed a mother's love was enough. Rage for having been so naive. I dried my tears. I got up from the sofa. I picked up Kevin's phone and took out my own cell. I started taking pictures, photo after photo of every conversation, of every message, of every word that had broken my heart. Afterward, I connected Kevin's phone to my computer. I wasn't very good with technology, but I had learned a few things over the years. I downloaded all the conversations, all the messages, everything. I saved it all onto a thumb drive I had in a drawer. When I finished, I disconnected the phone and left it where it was. I sat back down on the sofa, and I started to think. They thought I was a foolish old woman, a naive mother who would accept everything without saying a word, who would let herself be pushed aside and live out the rest of her days in silence, grateful for whatever scraps of attention they threw her way. But they were wrong. I had given everything for my son. I had sacrificed my entire life for him. And if he had decided to throw me away like trash, then I was going to make sure he knew exactly what he had lost. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to make a scene. I wasn't going to beg him to love me. I was going to do something better. I was going to protect myself. I was going to get back what was mine. I was going to show them that I was not the weak woman they thought I was. I picked up my phone and looked for a name in my contacts, Arthur Cervantes. I hadn't spoken to him in years. He had been the lawyer who helped me when I bought my apartment 3 decades ago. A serious, honest man. My age. I sent him a text. Arthur, it's Margaret Salas. I need your help with an urgent legal matter. Can we meet? He replied in less than an hour. Margaret, of course. Tomorrow at 10 in my office. I'll be there, I replied. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about every step I was going to take. I was no longer the same woman I had been that morning. Something inside me had woken up, and it wasn't going back to sleep. The next morning I woke up early. I hadn't slept well, but my mind was clearer than ever. I dressed carefully. Black pants, a white blouse, comfortable shoes. I wanted to look presentable, but not draw attention. I took the thumb drive where I had saved all of Kevin's conversations and put it in my purse. Arthur's office was downtown. I took the bus. The trip took 40 minutes. When I arrived, the building brought back memories. I had been there so many years ago, when I bought my apartment. Everything looked the same, just a little older, like me. I went up to the 3rd floor. His office door had a gold plaque. Arthur Cervantes, attorney at law. I knocked. A voice from inside said, "Come in." I entered. Arthur was sitting behind a dark wood desk, covered in papers and folders. He looked up and recognized me immediately. "Margaret," he said with a warm smile. "How long has it been?" "Too long," I replied. He stood up and gave me a brief hug. Then he offered me a seat. "What can I do for you?" he asked, sitting back down. I took a deep breath. I didn't know where to begin. "It's about my son," I said finally, "and about a house I gave him." Arthur nodded, listening intently. I told him everything, from the beginning. How I had sold my apartment to give Kevin the money. How he had bought the house, promising I would live with him. How he met Veronica, and everything changed. And then I told him about the phone, about the messages, about what I had read. When I finished, I took the thumb drive out of my purse and put it on his desk. "It's all here," I told him. "All the conversations, all the proof." Arthur took the drive and plugged it into his computer. He began to read in silence. His expression grew more serious with every message he read. After several minutes, he took off his glasses and looked at me. "Margaret," he said in a soft voice, "I'm very sorry you're going through this." I nodded. I didn't trust my voice right then. "But let me ask you something important," he continued. "Do you have any document that proves you gave Kevin the money to buy that house?" I felt my stomach sink. "No," I admitted. "It was a bank transfer, but we didn't sign anything. He's my son. I trusted him." Arthur sighed. "That complicates things," he said. "Legally, if the house is in Kevin's name, it's his. And if he decides to sign it over to his wife, he has every right to do so. Unless we can prove that money was a loan and not a gift." "But I have the bank records," I said quickly. "I have proof that I transferred him $50,000. "That helps," Arthur said. "But we need more. We need to prove there was an implied agreement, that the money came with conditions. Do you have texts? Emails? Anything where Kevin promised you'd live with him?" I thought about it. I remembered conversations we'd had, but they had all been in person or on the phone, never by text. "No," I said, feeling my hope slip away. "It was all verbal. We never put it in writing." Arthur leaned back in his chair, thinking. "All right," he said after a moment. "All is not lost. There are other things we can do." "Like what?" I asked. "First, I need to investigate the legal status of that house. See how it's registered, if there are any debts, if Kevin paid for it in full, or if he has a mortgage. Second, I need you to give me access to all your bank records from the last 3 years. Every transfer, every payment you made to Kevin, everything." "I'll do it," I promised. "And third," Arthur continued, looking at me intently, "I need you to tell me what you want. Do you want your money back? Do you want the house? Do you want Kevin to keep his promise to let you live with him? What are you looking for, Margaret?" I was silent. What did I want? I had spent all night thinking about it. "I want justice," I said finally. "I want him to know he can't treat me like this. I want Veronica to know I'm not some foolish old woman they can manipulate. I want them to pay for what they did to me." Arthur nodded slowly. "I understand," he said, "but I need you to be more specific. In legal terms, what outcome do you want?" I thought about it. I thought about everything I had lost. My apartment, my money, my son. "I want my money back," I said. "The $50,000 I gave him. And I want everyone to know the truth. I want his family, his friends, everyone who's going to be at that wedding, to know what kind of person he is." Arthur looked at me with something like concern. "Revenge is dangerous, Margaret," he warned me. "It can backfire. It can hurt you more than it hurts them." "It's not revenge," I replied. "It's justice. There's a difference." He sighed. "All right," he said. "Let me work on this. Give me a week to investigate everything and prepare a strategy. In the meantime, I need you to do something for me." "What?" "Don't tell Kevin anything about the phone. Don't tell him you read the messages. Don't change your behavior with him. Act as if nothing happened. Can you do that?" I nodded. "I can," I said. And that's how it all began. For the next few weeks, I became an actress. When Kevin called me, I answered with the same voice as always. When he visited, I smiled and offered him coffee. When he asked how I was, I told him I was fine, but inside, I was planning every move. Arthur worked quickly. He investigated everything about the house. He discovered that Kevin still owed $30,000 to the bank, that he had bought it for $80,000 and had only put $50,000 down. My money. He also discovered that Kevin had started the process to transfer the house to Veronica's name 2 weeks before I found his phone. He had planned it all along. But there's good news, Arthur told me at our second meeting. The transfer isn't complete yet. It requires both their signatures in front of a notary, and that hasn't happened yet. We have time. Time for what? I asked. To file a legal objection, he explained. We can argue that the money was a loan, not a gift, and that Kevin must pay you back before he can transfer the property. Will that work? I asked. It depends on the judge, Arthur admitted. But with the messages you found, your bank records, and the fact that you sold your own apartment to give him that money, we have a solid case. How long will it take? I asked. Months, he said. Maybe a year. These cases are slow. I shook my head. I don't have a year, I said. The wedding is in 2 months. By then, the house will already be in Veronica's name. We need to do something before then. Arthur thought for a moment. There is another option, he said slowly. Riskier, but faster. What is it? I asked. We can file an emergency petition. Argue that Kevin is attempting to dispose of an asset that partly belongs to you. Ask for a court order to freeze the property until the case is resolved. That would stop him from transferring it. And after that? I asked. After that, we can reach a settlement. Out of court. Kevin gives you the money back. You drop the lawsuit, and everyone moves on. It sounded good. It sounded simple. But I knew it wouldn't be that easy. And if Kevin refuses? I asked. Then we go to trial, Arthur said. And with the evidence we have, there's a good chance you'll win. I thought about it all. The options. The consequences. Do it, I said finally. Prepare everything. But wait to file the lawsuit. Wait until when? Arthur asked. Until I tell you, I replied. I want the timing to be perfect. Arthur looked at me curiously, but he didn't ask any more questions. As you wish, he said. But be careful, Margaret. This could get ugly. It's already ugly, I replied. I'm just making sure I'm not the only one who suffers. I left that meeting feeling different. For the first time in months, I felt like I had control over my life. For the first time, I felt I wasn't a victim. I was a woman who was going to fight for what was hers. And Kevin and Veronica had no idea what was coming for them. The following weeks were the strangest of my life. On the outside, I was the same old Margaret, the quiet mother, the older woman who didn't cause trouble. Inside, I was someone else entirely. Every morning, I woke up with a purpose. I reviewed the documents Arthur had given me. I reread the messages I'd found on Kevin's phone. I reminded myself why I was doing this. It wasn't for revenge. It was for dignity. Kevin finally came looking for his phone 3 weeks after he'd lost it. He knocked on my door one Saturday morning. I was prepared. I had left the phone charged and in its place, as if I had never touched it. Mom, he said when I opened the door, you haven't seen my phone, have you? I lost it weeks ago. Your phone? I said, feigning surprise. No, son, I haven't seen anything. He came inside and started looking. I watched him from the kitchen, making coffee like I always did. Here it is, he shouted from the living room. It was between the sofa cushions. That's weird. I don't remember leaving it there. Maybe it fell out the last time you were here, I suggested calmly. Yeah, that must be it, he said, checking the phone. Thanks, Mom. He stayed for 10 more minutes. He drank his coffee. He told me about work, about the wedding preparations, about how excited he was. He didn't mention the house. He didn't mention Veronica and her plans, and I didn't ask. I just smiled and nodded, like the compliant mother he expected me to be. When he left, I sat on the sofa and let out the breath I had been holding. It had worked. He didn't suspect a thing. 2 days later, Arthur called me. Margaret, I have news, he said. Kevin and Veronica have an appointment with the closing attorney on the 15th of this month. They're going to sign the transfer of the house. The 15th. That was 3 weeks away. Are you sure? I asked. Completely. I have a contact at the firm. He confirmed the appointment. Perfect, I said. Then we know when to act. Do you want me to file the lawsuit before that date? Arthur asked. No, I replied. I want you to file it the same day, in the morning before they go to the attorney's office. Arthur was silent for a moment. That's risky, he said finally. If we do it that way, Kevin will know you planned this. He'll know you had access to information about his appointment. I don't care, I said. I want him to know I'm not a fool, that I know exactly what he's doing. All right, Arthur agreed. We'll do it your way. But after that, things are going to change. Kevin is going to be angry, very angry. Let him be, I replied. I don't care about his anger anymore. I hung up the phone and sat down to wait. But before that day came, something else happened. Kevin invited me to lunch. It was strange, because he almost never did that. He almost never sought me out unless he needed something. Mom, he said on the phone, are you free on Sunday? Veronica and I want to have you over for lunch. My first instinct was to say no. But then I thought maybe it was an opportunity, a chance to observe, to confirm what I already knew. Of course, son, I said. Where? At the house, he replied. Veronica is going to cook. She wants me to try her food. At the house, my house, the one I had paid for. I'll be there, I promised. On Sunday, I arrived at 12 o'clock sharp. I knocked on the door, and Veronica opened it. She was wearing a casual dress, her hair pulled back, perfect makeup. She greeted me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Mrs. Salas, she said. Come in, come in. I entered. The house smelled like food, something with garlic and spices. Kevin was in the living room, watching television. He stood up when he saw me. Mom, he said, giving me a quick hug. Glad you could make it. We sat at the table. Veronica served roast chicken with potatoes and a salad. It all looked fine. We ate in uncomfortable silence for the first few minutes. I waited for someone to say something, but no one did. Finally, Veronica broke the silence. Mrs. Salas, she said, setting her fork down. Kevin and I wanted to talk to you about something important. My heart started to beat faster. Here it came. Yes, I said, trying to sound casual. It's about the house, Veronica continued, looking at Kevin as if asking for permission to go on. He nodded. Kevin is giving me the house as a wedding present, Veronica said. It's going to be in my name. I just wanted you to know, so there are no surprises later. I stared at her, studying her face, the way she watched me, waiting for my reaction. I understand, I said simply. Veronica seemed surprised by my calmness. You don't have anything to say? She asked. What do you want me to say? I replied. It's Kevin's house. He can do what he wants with it. Kevin visibly relaxed. He had been expecting a fight. Thanks for understanding, Mom, he said. I knew you would. Of course, I said, taking a sip of water. You're a couple. It makes sense for you to share everything. Veronica smiled. It was a victorious smile. I'm glad you see it that way, she said. Some mothers-in-law get difficult about these things. But you're different. You're reasonable. Reasonable. That word burned inside me. But I didn't let it show. I just want Kevin to be happy, I said. And that was true. Or at least, it had been true once. We finished eating. Veronica served dessert, a chocolate cake she had bought at a bakery. We drank coffee. Kevin told me about the wedding, 200 guests, an elegant hall, a live band. It all sounded expensive. And how are you paying for all of this? I asked, genuinely curious. Veronica's parents are helping, Kevin explained. And we've been saving. With the money they weren't spending on rent because they lived in the house I had paid for. But I didn't say anything. I just nodded and smiled. When I was leaving, Veronica walked me to the door. Mrs. Salas, she said in a low voice, when Kevin couldn't hear us. I really appreciate you being so understanding. I know we haven't always had the best relationship, but I hope that changes. I looked her in the eyes. I saw something there, something cold and calculating. I hope so too, I told her. I left that house feeling a mix of emotions. Sadness, of course, but also something stronger. Determination. They thought they had won. They thought I had accepted my fate without a fight. They had no idea how wrong they were. That night I called Arthur. Is everything ready for the 15th? I asked. Everything is ready, he confirmed. The documents are prepared. I just need your final authorization. You have it, I said. Do it. File the lawsuit at exactly 9 in the morning, before they get to the attorney's office. Understood, Arthur said. Margaret, are you sure about this? Once we take this step, there's no turning back. I'm sure, I replied without hesitation. More sure than I've been in a long time. Very well, he said. Then we'll talk on the 15th. The days passed slowly. Every morning I woke up counting how many days were left. 10 days, 9 days, 8 days. Kevin called me one more time during that period. He invited me to see Veronica's wedding dress. I said I was busy. Busy with what, Mom? He asked, sounding genuinely confused. As if a woman my age couldn't possibly have anything important to do. Personal things, I replied. I'll see you at the wedding. 5 days, 4 days, 3 days. The night before the 15th, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake in my bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that was about to happen. I thought about Kevin, the boy he was, the man he had become. I thought about me, the woman I had been, the woman I was about to be, and I thought about what Arthur had said. There's no turning back. He was right. After tomorrow, nothing would be the same. My relationship with Kevin, if I could even call it that anymore, would probably be over forever. Was I willing to pay that price? I closed my eyes and remembered the messages. Veronica's words. Kevin's replies. She's already served her purpose. You're right. It's better to just do it. I opened my eyes. Yes, I was willing, because I had nothing left to lose, and they were about to find out that the woman they had underestimated for so long was much stronger than they ever imagined. The 15th dawned cloudy. I woke up at 6 in the morning, though I hadn't slept more than 2 hours. My body was trembling, not from fear, but from anticipation. I took a hot shower, letting the steam fill the small bathroom. I dressed carefully. Black pants, a gray blouse, comfortable shoes. Nothing flashy. Nothing that would give away what I was about to do. I had tea and toast for breakfast, though I could barely eat. My stomach was in knots. At 8:30, my phone rang. It was Arthur. Good morning, Margaret, he said in a serious voice. I'm on my way to the courthouse. In half an hour, I will file the lawsuit and the restraining order on the property. Any change of plans? None, I replied firmly. Do it. Very well. I'll call you when it's done. I hung up and sat on the sofa, phone in hand, waiting. The minutes passed so slowly I felt like the clock had stopped. At 9:20, my phone rang again. It's done, Arthur said. The lawsuit is filed. The restraining order was approved. The property is frozen. Kevin cannot transfer it, sell it, or make any changes until the case is resolved. I felt something release in my chest. When will they be notified? I asked. Any minute now, Arthur replied. I sent the process server directly to the attorney's office where they have their appointment. They should be arriving right about now. Thank you, Arthur, I said. Thank you for everything. Don't thank me yet, he warned. This is just the beginning. Kevin is going to call you, and he is not going to be happy. I know, I said. I'm ready. But I wasn't ready. Not really. Because when Kevin called me, 40 minutes later, the level of rage in his voice took me by surprise. What did you do? He yelled before I could even say hello. What the hell did you do, Mom? I stayed silent, holding on to the back of the sofa. I'm at the attorney's office, he continued shouting. Some guy just showed up with legal documents. A lawsuit. A court order. All in your name. How could you do this to me? Kevin, I said, my voice calm, though my heart was pounding. We need to talk. I don't want to talk, he screamed. I want you to drop that lawsuit. Now. Do you hear me? Right now. I can't do that, I replied. What do you mean you can't? His voice cracked with rage and disbelief. What is this? Revenge because Veronica and I want our privacy? Because we don't want you living with us? Those words hurt, but not as much as I thought they would. It's not about that, I said. It's because I paid for that house. $50,000. Everything I had. And you promised me I would have a place there. You promised me, Kevin. That was before, he yelled. Things changed. I changed. I have a wife now. I have my own life. I know, I said, and that's why I just want my money back. $50,000. Give me that back, and I'll drop the lawsuit. Silence. A long, heavy silence. I don't have $50,000, he finally said, his voice lower but just as hard. It's all invested in the house, in the wedding, in our lives. Then sell the house, I suggested. Pay what you owe the bank, give me my money back, and keep whatever is left. Sell the house? He shouted again. Are you crazy? This is my house, my home. I'm not selling it because you decided to ruin my life. I'm not ruining your life, Kevin, I said, feeling tears start to form in my eyes, but I wouldn't let them fall. I'm just protecting what's mine. You're selfish, he spat the words like poison. A selfish, bitter old woman who can't stand to see me happy. Those words hit me. They hit me so hard I had to sit down. If that's what you think of me, I said, my voice trembling, then we have nothing more to talk about. My lawyers will be in touch with you. Your lawyers? He laughed bitterly. Since when do you have lawyers? What money are you paying them with? That's not your problem, I replied. Everything you do is my problem, he said, because you're my mother, and mothers don't sue their sons. What are people going to say? What is the family going to think? There it was, his real concern. Not the money, not the house, but what other people would think. The family? I repeated. You mean the family that's going to be at your wedding? The one that's going to celebrate while you keep the only thing I had left? You gave it to me, he shouted. It was a gift. You can't take back a gift. It wasn't a gift, I said firmly. It was an agreement, and you broke that agreement. What agreement? He demanded. We never signed anything. There's no paper that says I owed you anything. But there are text messages, I said slowly. Messages between you and Veronica, talking about how to get me out of the way, about how to get my pension when I die, about how I already served my purpose. Silence again, but this time it was different. It was the silence of shock. What? He whispered. How? How do you know about that? I found your phone, I said, 3 months ago, and I read everything. I could hear his heavy breathing on the other end. You're. He couldn't finish the sentence. You read my private messages. You invaded my privacy, and you plan to erase me from your life, I countered. I think we're even. This isn't going to end here, he said, his voice dangerously low. I'm going to fight this. I'm going to prove you're wrong, that you're the one doing something wrong. Do it, I said. But in the meantime, the house stays frozen. You can't transfer it. You can't sell it. You can't do anything with it. You're going to regret this, he said. I swear, Mom, you are going to regret this. And he hung up. I sat there with the phone in my hand, trembling from head to toe. It had happened. There was no going back. The rest of the day was hell. Kevin called me 5 more times. I didn't answer. Veronica called me twice. I didn't answer those either. They left messages. Furious messages, pleading messages, threatening messages. You're a bad mother. I can't believe you're doing this to us. You're going to destroy our wedding. Everyone is going to know what you did. I deleted all the messages without finishing them. Brenda came to see me in the afternoon. She had heard rumors. In a small town, news travels fast. Margaret, she said, sitting next to me on the sofa. Is it true? You sued Kevin? I nodded, not looking at her. Oh, woman, she sighed. Why didn't you tell me you were going to do that? Because I needed to do it alone, I replied. Because if I talked about it with anyone, they might have talked me out of it. And what's going to happen now? She asked. I don't know, I admitted. But it doesn't matter anymore. I've already done it, and I don't regret it. Brenda hugged me. She didn't say anything else. She just held me as I finally let out the tears I had been holding in all day. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I lay awake, thinking about everything that had happened, about Kevin's words, his rage, his pain. Part of me, a small part, wondered if I had done the right thing. But then I remembered the messages, the conversations, the plans they had made behind my back. And I knew I had. I had done exactly what I had to do. The next day, Arthur called me early. Margaret, "We have news," he said. "Kevin's lawyer contacted me. They want to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" I asked. "A settlement. Kevin is willing to give you back part of the money if you drop the lawsuit and the order on the property." "How much?" I asked. $20,000, Arthur said, "in monthly payments of $1,000 for 20 months. I laughed. I couldn't help it. "20,000, I repeated. "I gave him 50, and he wants to give me back 20. In payments." "I know it's not fair," Arthur said. "But it's an offer. We have to consider it." "No," I said without hesitation. "I want the full 50,000, or I'll see them in court." "Margaret, a trial could take months," he warned. "Years even, and there's no guarantee you'll win." "I don't care," I replied. "I'm not accepting less than what I'm owed." Arthur sighed. "All right. I'll tell his lawyer we reject the offer." I hung up and sat by the window, watching the street. The wedding was in 2 weeks. 2 weeks in which Kevin and Veronica would have to decide what to do. Cancel, postpone, or go ahead as if nothing was wrong. I already knew what they would do. They would go ahead. Because people like them don't let anything get in the way of their plans. And I would be there. At that wedding, watching, waiting. Because this wasn't over. It was just beginning. The days leading up to the wedding were a silent nightmare. Kevin didn't call me again. He didn't send any messages. He didn't come to see me. It was as if I had ceased to exist for him. Veronica, on the other hand, did reach out. She sent me a text message a week before the wedding. "Mrs. Salas, we need to talk. Please. This doesn't have to end this way." I didn't reply. The next day, she called me. This time, I answered. I needed to know what she wanted. "Mrs. Salas," she said in a soft, almost sweet voice, very different from how she used to talk to me. "Thank you for answering. I know things are difficult right now, but I think we can solve this." "There's nothing to solve," I said. "I just want my money back." "I understand," she said. "And you have every right to ask for it, but $50,000 is a lot of money. Kevin can't just pay you that all at once. We need time." "You've had time," I replied. 3 years of time. Time you spent living in a house I paid for while I lived in a rental." "I know, and I'm sorry," she said, though she didn't sound sorry at all. "But you have to understand our position. The wedding is in 1 week. We've already paid for the hall, the food, the band. If we cancel now, we lose all that money. It's almost $30,000. "That's not my problem," I said. "Please." Her voice broke a little. "I'm just asking you to wait, to drop the order on the house until after the wedding. Afterward, we can sit down and talk, the 3 of us, like a family." "We're not family anymore, Veronica," I said, and the words hurt me more than they hurt her. "You both made sure of that." "Don't say that," she insisted. "Kevin loves you. He's confused, he's angry, but he loves you. You're his mother. If he loved me, he wouldn't have planned to erase me from his life," I replied. "I read the messages, Veronica. I know exactly what you two think of me." "Silence. That," she started, searching for words. "That was a misunderstanding. I was angry that day. I said things I shouldn't have." "It wasn't one day," I interrupted. "It was weeks, months, entire conversations planning how to get rid of me." "Fine," she said, and her voice changed. It wasn't sweet anymore. It was cold. "What do you want then? To ruin our lives? To destroy our wedding? Does that make you feel better?" "I want justice," I said simply. "I want what is mine." "Well, you're not going to get it," she spat the words. "Kevin is going to fight this, and he's going to win. Because you don't have a single document to prove that money was a loan. It was a gift. And you can't take back a gift." "Then I'll see you in court," I said, and hung up. I sat there, my hands shaking. That conversation confirmed everything I needed to know. They weren't going to budge. They weren't going to admit they'd done anything wrong. They weren't going to apologize. They were just going to fight. And so was I. 3 days before the wedding, I received the formal invitation in the mail. It was elegant, a cream-colored envelope with gold lettering. Inside, a thick card that read, "Rafael Salas and Leandra Marquez request the honor of your presence at the celebration of their marriage." At the bottom, written by hand, was a note from Kevin. "Mom, despite everything, I want you to be there. You're my mother. Please, come." I read that note 3 times. Part of me wanted to believe it was genuine, that deep down, my son still loved me, but the more realistic part of me knew the truth. He was inviting me because canceling my invitation would be a public admission that we had problems, and that would ruin the perfect image they wanted to project. I called Arthur. "Should I go?" I asked. "That's up to you," he replied. "Legally, you have no obligation. But if you do go, stay calm. Don't do anything that can be used against you in the case." "And if they do something?" I asked. "What if they humiliate me in front of everyone?" "Document it," Arthur said. "Record it if you have to. Anything they say or do can help us in the case." I decided to go. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to be there. I needed to see how this all ended. The night before the wedding, Brenda came to my apartment. "Are you sure you want to go?" she asked as we drank tea in my tiny kitchen. "I have to go," I replied. "If I don't, they'll say I was the one who broke the family, that I was the one who caused all this." "But you didn't cause anything," Brenda said. "They did." "I know," I said, "but people don't see it that way. People always blame the mother. Always." Brenda nodded. She understood. She was a mother, too. "Do you want me to go with you?" she offered. "Would you?" I asked, surprised. "Of course I will," she said. "I'm not letting you face this alone." I felt tears fill my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you, Brenda." The day of the wedding arrived. I got up early, even though the ceremony wasn't until 6 in the evening. I showered. I put on the gray dress I had bought for the occasion. I put on a little makeup. I did my hair carefully. I looked at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me was different from the one I had been months ago. There was something in her eyes, something hard, something that had learned to survive. Brenda arrived at 5. She was wearing a simple black dress. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready," I replied, though my stomach was in knots. We took a taxi to the reception hall. It was an elegant place on the other side of town. Everything was white and gold. Lights hanging from the ceiling, flowers everywhere. When we entered, people were already arriving. Acquaintances, relatives, friends of Kevin's I had watched grow up. Some greeted me. Others looked at me with curiosity. Others simply ignored me. I looked for my seat. They had put my name at a table in the back, near the restrooms. Not at the main table with the family. Not near the groom. In the back, where I wouldn't be a bother. Brenda and I sat down. I watched the room. Everything was beautiful. Everything was perfect. And it had all been paid for with money that should have been returned to me. The ceremony began at 6:30. Kevin walked in with his best man. He looked nervous but happy. He was wearing a black tuxedo that fit him perfectly. Then Veronica came in on her father's arm. Her dress was stunning, white, with lace and a long train that 2 little girls carried behind her. Everyone stood up. I did too. I watched her walk down that aisle. I watched her smile. I watched her reach Kevin. And I felt nothing. I felt no happiness for my son. I felt no emotion for the wedding. I felt nothing but a deep emptiness. The ceremony was short. They exchanged vows. They exchanged rings. They kissed. Everyone applauded. I applauded too, because it was what was expected of me. Afterward came the reception, the music, the food, the dancing. Kevin and Veronica had their first dance as husband and wife. Then he danced with Veronica's mother. He didn't ask me to dance. He didn't even look at me. It was as if I wasn't there. I sat at my table, drinking water, watching. Brenda tried to make conversation, but I could barely respond. Then it happened. Kevin walked up to the microphone. The music stopped. Everyone looked at him. "Good evening, everyone," he said in a clear voice. "I want to thank you all for being here on this very special day." People clapped. "I want to especially thank Veronica's parents," he continued, "for all their support, for all their love, for welcoming me into their family." More applause. Then he looked at me, directly at me. "And I want to thank my mother," he said. My heart stopped. "For giving me life," he continued. for raising me, and for teaching me how important family is. It sounded good. It sounded like a genuine thank you. But I knew the truth. Mom, he said, still looking at me, thank you for everything you did for me, especially for the house you gave me 3 years ago. People murmured. Some nodded in approval. That house, Kevin continued, means so much to us. And today, as a wedding present for Veronica, that house is now in her name. The room erupted in applause. I sat there, frozen. He hadn't said anything directly, but the message was clear. He was publicly announcing that the house belonged to Veronica, that I had no right to it, that whatever I had done legally didn't matter. Veronica took the microphone from Kevin's hands. Thank you, honey, she said in that sweet voice. I hated so much. And thank you too, mother-in-law. She looked right at me. She smiled. I know this must be hard for you, she said. But don't worry. Relax. This is just the beginning of everything. The same words she had said to me in private, she now said in front of 200 people. People laughed. They thought it was a joke. A playful comment between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. They didn't know it was a declaration of war. I sat there, motionless. Brenda squeezed my hand under the table. Margaret, she whispered. Are you okay? I didn't answer. I just took my phone out of my purse. And I dialed Arthur's number. Arthur answered on the second ring. Margaret, his voice sounded worried. Are you okay? It happened, I said in a low voice, covering my mouth with my hand so no one else could hear me. He did it. You can proceed with everything. Understood, Arthur replied. Give me 20 minutes. Everything is ready. I hung up. I put the phone back in my purse. I took a deep breath, and I waited. The party continued, as if nothing had happened. Kevin and Veronica danced again. People ate, drank, laughed. Everything was perfect for them. But I knew that perfection was about to be shattered. 15 minutes later, I saw a man walk into the hall. He was wearing a gray suit and carrying a folder under his arm. He looked around, searching for someone. He was the process server. He approached a waitress and asked her something. She pointed toward the main table where Kevin and Veronica were. The man walked toward them with purpose. I watched from my table, my heart beating so fast I thought everyone could hear it. The process server reached Kevin just as he was toasting with some friends. Kevin Salas? The man asked in a loud voice. Kevin turned, confused. Yes, that's me, he replied. Who are you? I have a legal notice for you, the man said, holding out an envelope. I need you to sign here confirming you've received it. The room started to go quiet. People were turning to see what was happening. Kevin took the envelope, looking at it as if it were a venomous snake. What is this? He asked. It's a court order, the process server explained. The property located at 342 Maple Drive has had a preliminary attachment placed on it by order of the court, pending the resolution of civil fraud case number 202-50047. Civil fraud. Those words echoed in the hall like thunder. People started to murmur, to whisper. Veronica rushed over to Kevin. What's going on? She asked, her voice high-pitched. What is he talking about? The plaintiff, Mrs. Margaret Salas, the process server continued, reading from a document, has presented evidence that the defendant, Kevin Salas, obtained $50,000 from her under false pretenses and is now fraudulently attempting to transfer the property bought with that money to a third party to evade his responsibility to repay it. That's a lie, Kevin shouted. That's completely false. But no one was listening. They were all too busy watching, talking among themselves, trying to understand what was happening. Please sign here, the process server insisted, offering a tablet with a document. Kevin signed it with trembling hands. The process server gave him a copy of the document and left. The room fell into a heavy silence. Kevin stood there, paper in hand, his face red with shame and rage. Veronica snatched the document from him and began to read it. Her expression changed from confusion to horror. No, she whispered. No, 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 this can't be happening. Not today. Then she saw me, at the back of the hall, sitting at my table, watching them directly. You? She screamed, pointing her finger at me. You did this. Everyone turned to look at me. I stood up slowly. Yes, I said, my voice clear and strong. I did it. Veronica started walking toward me, her dress dragging behind her. Kevin followed. How could you? She shrieked when she reached my table. How could you ruin our day like this? What kind of person does this? The kind of person who is done being stepped on, I replied calmly. You gave Kevin that money, she continued to scream. It was a gift. You can't just demand it back because you're jealous he's moved on with his life without you. It wasn't a gift, I said. It was an agreement. And you broke that agreement. Kevin finally spoke. Mom, his voice trembled. Why? Why today? Why at my wedding? Because today, I answered, looking him in the eyes, is when you decided to publicly announce that the house I paid for now belongs to your wife. You announced something you legally cannot do, and I was not going to stay silent. Everyone here is a witness, Veronica said, looking around the room. Everyone heard it was a gift, that she gave it to him willingly. That's true, I said. I gave it to him willingly, but under the promise that I would have a place in his life, a place in that house. And that promise was broken. And I have proof, I continued, taking my phone out of my purse. Text messages between you two, planning how to get rid of me, talking about my pension as if it were already yours, saying that I already served my purpose. The room went completely quiet. Kevin turned pale. You read my private messages, he whispered. I found your phone 3 months ago, I explained. And yes, I read them. All of them. Every conversation where you planned to erase me from your lives. That's invasion of privacy, Veronica said. That can't be used legally. Maybe, I admitted. But it can be shown publicly, here, now, so everyone knows what kind of people you really are. Don't you dare, Veronica warned me, her voice dangerous. But I had already made my decision. Brenda, I said to my friend, can you connect my phone to that screen? There was a large screen in the hall they had been using to show photos of Kevin and Veronica during the reception. Brenda, who was better with technology than I was, got up and walked toward the sound system. No! Veronica shouted, trying to stop her. You have no right. But the groom's friends, confused and curious, moved aside to let Brenda pass. In less than a minute, the screen lit up. And there, for everyone to see, were the messages. The first one was from Veronica. Have you talked to your mom about the house yet? Kevin's reply. No, not yet. I don't know how to tell her. Veronica's. Well, you have to do it soon. We need that house in my name before the wedding. People started to read, some aloud, others in silence. I kept scrolling through the messages. Your mom is fine where she is. We need our space. She's already served her purpose. Have you thought about your mom's pension? When something happens, everything she has will be yours. Every message was worse than the last. Your mom is getting on my nerves. She has to understand you're not a kid anymore. It's better to just do it. We'll explain later if she asks. The room was completely silent now. The only sound was the murmur of people reading. Veronica covered her face with her hands. Kevin stared at the screen in horror. Turn it off, Kevin pleaded. Please, Mom. Turn it off. Why? I asked. Are you ashamed for people to know the truth? Those messages were private, he shouted. They were said in anger. They don't represent how we really feel. Oh no? I asked. Then tell me, Kevin, when were you going to keep your promise? When was I going to get to live with you, like you promised me? He didn't answer. Never, I answered for him. It was never going to happen, because you had already decided I had no place in your lives. I showed another message. This one was more recent. Kevin, Veronica, after the wedding we need to start distancing ourselves from my mom. Slowly, so it's not too obvious. Veronica. How, Kevin? Kevin. Stop answering her calls so quickly. Stop visiting her as often. Eventually, she'll get the message. A woman in the crowd gasped. It was Aunt Judy, my late husband's sister, one of the few relatives I had left. Kevin, she said, her voice trembling. Is this true? Kevin opened his mouth, but no words came out. Of course not, Veronica interjected. This is taken out of context. She's manipulating everything to make us look bad. I don't need to manipulate anything, I said. Your own words speak for you. I showed one last message. The one that had hurt me the most. Kevin. Veronica. Sometimes I wish my mom would just understand that I don't need her like I used to. Veronica. Will she ever understand? Or will she just end up alone trying to figure it out? The room exploded in murmurs. People were talking to each other, looking at Kevin and Veronica with expressions of shock and disapproval. Veronica's mother walked up to her daughter. Veronica, she said in a harsh voice. What is all this? You wrote these things? Mom, Veronica started to cry. I didn't mean it. I was frustrated. Mothers-in-law are always complicated. Complicated is one thing, her mother said. This is cruelty. Veronica's father approached Kevin, his expression serious. Young man, he said in a cold voice, you owe your mother money. Kevin swallowed. She gave me that money. It was a gift. It doesn't look like a gift, Veronica's father said, glancing at the screen where the messages were still visible. It looks like you promised her something in return and didn't deliver. Mr. Marquez, Kevin began, but the man held up his hand. My daughter just married a man who owes his own mother $50,000, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. A man who plans to take his elderly mother's pension when she dies. This is the man who is going to take care of my daughter. Kevin opened his mouth but said nothing. Veronica was sobbing uncontrollably. Her beautiful white dress now seemed out of place in the middle of all this chaos. I turned off the screen. I had shown enough. I turned to Kevin. Son, I said, my voice soft but firm. I gave you everything I had, not because I expected anything in return, but because you are my son, because I love you. Or, I loved you. Mom, he whispered, tears in his eyes. But a mother's love isn't infinite, I continued. Not when that love is stepped on. Not when that love is used as a weakness. I'm sorry, he said finally. I'm so sorry. You're not sorry, I replied. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. I turned to all the guests who were watching us. I want you all to know, I said loudly, that I didn't do this for revenge. I did this for justice. Because there is a difference between being a sacrificial mother and being a fool. And I am tired of being seen as a fool. I picked up my purse. Brenda stood up next to me. The lawsuit stands, I told Kevin. And the order on the house does too. My lawyer will be in touch with you to negotiate the terms of repayment. Or we'll see you in court. You decide. Mom, wait. Kevin took a step toward me. Please, we can fix this. We can sit down and talk, like a family. We're not family anymore, Kevin, I said, and the words hurt me more than they hurt him. A family doesn't treat each other this way. A family doesn't plan to get rid of its own when they're no longer useful. It was Veronica, he suddenly shouted. It was her. She said all those things. I just went along with it, but I never wanted to hurt you. Veronica turned to him, her expression one of absolute betrayal. What? She whispered. You're blaming me? You agreed with everything. You said yes to every plan. Because you pressured me, Kevin shot back. Because you always wanted more and more, and I didn't know how to tell you no. No, Veronica shook her head. You are not pinning this on me. You are a grown man. You made your own decisions. I watched them fight there, in front of everyone, and I felt a profound sadness. This is what was left of my son, a man who blamed others for his own actions, a man who had forgotten the values I had raised him with. It doesn't matter whose idea it was, I said finally. You both did it. You both hurt me, and now you'll both pay the consequences. I headed for the exit. Brenda walked beside me. Aunt Judy approached me before I could leave. Margaret, she said, taking my hands. You did the right thing. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I nodded, not trusting my voice. We walked out of the hall. The night air was cool. The stars were shining. We took a taxi back to my apartment. The entire ride, neither of us spoke. When we arrived, Brenda walked me to the door. Do you want me to stay with you? She offered. I shook my head. I need to be alone, I said. But thank you. For everything. She hugged me tight. You're the bravest woman I know, she whispered in my ear. I went into my apartment. I locked the door. And finally, I let it all out. I cried. I cried for hours. I cried for the son I had lost. For the years I had wasted. For the family I was never going to have. But I also cried in relief, because for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had gotten my dignity back. The following days were a mix of silence and legal activity. Arthur called me every morning with updates. Kevin had hired a lawyer. They wanted to negotiate. They're offering $35,000, Arthur told me, in one lump sum, in exchange for you dropping the lawsuit. I want $45,000, I replied, and I want them to sign a document acknowledging that the money was a loan they are repaying. Arthur negotiated for a week. Finally, they reached an agreement. $40,000 in a single payment, with a signed document acknowledging the debt. Kevin had to sell the house to get the money. He and Veronica moved into a rented apartment. The money arrived in my bank account 1 month after the wedding. When I saw that $40,000 in my account, I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel victory. I just felt sadness for everything I'd had to do to get there. But I also felt something else. I felt peace. With that money, I bought a small condo. Nothing fancy, just a place that was mine, completely mine. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a functional kitchen, in a quiet neighborhood, far from where Kevin lived. I moved in a month later. Brenda helped me pack. I didn't have much. Clothes, some old furniture, photographs. I found a box of pictures of Kevin when he was a boy, smiling, hugging me, happy. I looked at those photos for a long time. Are you going to take them? Brenda asked. I nodded. They're memories of who he was, I said, not who he is now. Kevin tried to call me 3 times after I received the money. I didn't answer any of his calls. He sent me a text. Mom, we need to talk, please. I didn't reply. Part of me wanted to reply. I wanted to hear what he had to say. I wanted to know if he had learned anything from all this. But the wiser part of me knew it didn't matter. Some things, once broken, can't be fixed. And my relationship with Kevin was one of those things. 6 months after the wedding, I was sitting on the balcony of my new condo, drinking coffee and watching the sunrise. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered. Mrs. Salas. A woman's voice I didn't recognize asked. Yes, this is she, I replied. This is Fabiana, Veronica's sister, she said. I don't know if you remember me. I was at the wedding. I remember you, I said. I wanted to call you to apologize, she continued, for not saying anything that night, for not defending what was right. I was silent, surprised. And I also wanted to tell you, she added, that what you did was incredible. So many women in your situation would have just stayed quiet, but you stood up for yourself, and you inspired a lot of us. Thank you, I said softly. That means a lot. How are you doing now? Fabiana asked. I looked around my small balcony, the plants I had started to grow, the book I was reading, the steaming cup of coffee in my hands. I'm okay, I answered. Better than I've been in years. And it was true. I had lost my son. I had lost the idea of the family I had always wanted, but I had gained something more valuable. I had gained myself back. That afternoon, I sat down at my computer and started to write. I wrote my story, every detail, every pain, every decision. I didn't know what I would do with that story. Maybe nothing. Maybe someday I would share it with someone who needed to hear it. Because I had learned something important in all of this. That self-love isn't selfishness. That defending yourself isn't cruelty. That saying no more doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you free. I closed the computer and went for a walk. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. I walked through my new neighborhood, greeting the neighbors I was starting to get to know. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled. Not because everything was perfect, but because I was finally at peace with myself. I reached a small park and sat on a bench. I took out my phone and looked at the screen. I still had unread messages from Kevin. I pressed the delete button, not with anger, not with pain, just with the certainty that some doors need to close so that others can open. I sat there until the sun had set completely, and when I stood up to go home, I whispered to myself the words that now defined my life. My name is no longer his. My story is just beginning. And I walked forward, without looking back, toward the rest of my life. A life that was finally mine, only mine. And that was more than enough.